Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're in high school, you might not need to go to college right now. You just need to know how to program or need to know how to, manage an online environment well,
Sure.
because all companies are going to start creating new positions around this.
Imagine sending your children into a classroom where there are no teachers and there are no textbooks. This is exactly what our guest today encountered as he traveled school districts across the country for several years. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlsen. In today's Ask an Expert segment, I'm going to be sitting down with Evan Erdberg. He's the one that identified these holes and developed a virtual-based learning platform to help fill them. And along the way, he has helped transform the lives of tens of thousands of school kids across the nation. Now let's get started to see how he's still doing it today. Evan, welcome. Thank you for joining us on our Ask an Expert segment.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, so to get started, I'd like to recognize the fact that you are somewhat uniquely positioned as we've been facing this pandemic and economic situation. So your company, Proximity Learning, is all about virtual education. So I'd love to just hear what these past few months have been like for your organization.
Sure. So it's been a whirlwind, I guess you can say.
Okay.
We've been growing steadily, every year because teacher shortages are going up, and students that are in really your urban or rural areas that face, a lack of teachers. It's an equity issue.
Sure.
And when COVID hit, we weren't sure what was going to happen, to be perfectly honest, because districts were shutting down, students were at home. And to our surprise, and I guess we're happy about it too, is districts asked us to continue education at home.
Okay.
And so we teach about 50,000 kids every year this year.
Wow.
And we actually were able to continue education for over 30,000 of them from home.
Okay.
And this is in urban areas like Milwaukee Public Schools, Austin ISD, Fulton County, Georgia. We were actually able to work with these students at home to either connect with us using their phones or the computer and to continue their education so they're not just at home doing nothing. And so we went from a company where we were focused on in-school expansion to now helping schools to focus in on serving kids at home. And that's even, progressed now to where we're coming into the new school year and districts are really afraid because they got teachers that are quitting in mass because they're afraid to come back.
Okay.
And you have students, parents that are saying we don't want to send our kids back. So it's a very unique situation we're in. And we were lucky enough to be able to handle it this past school year. And we're now working with districts to look at what it looks like going forward.
Okay. Well, I'm big on origin stories, so I'd love to hear, how did proximity learning come about in the first place?
Sure. So I used to work for a company called Teachscape, and they partnered with the Danielson Framework for Teaching. And so we would work with school districts to implement observation systems. So I would actually go into a school, train teachers, train the principal on the rubric, and then implement an observation system with them.
Okay.
And towards the end of my first year working there, we started to go into places like Camden, New Jersey, the deep south of Mississippi. And I would go train the principal and the teachers, and we'd go to do walkthroughs, and we'd be skipping classrooms. And at first, I didn't think much of it. But as we started to skip more and more classrooms in schools, I asked, where are the teachers? They just out, is there a sub in there? Is it short term?
Right.
And they told me, no, it's a long-term sub. We haven't been able to find a teacher. And then more and more schools I went into where these long-term subs were not there 1 year, they were there 3 years. And this is math.
Wow.
I went into some schools where 50% of the school was long-term subs. 50%.
That's incredible.
And what environments do you think these schools existed in?
The places that probably need education the most.
Right? Exactly. It's an equity issue.
Right.
Right. It's the urban and the rural campuses where it's really a teacher choice environment. And where are they going to go? Right? They're going to go to the suburban, well-paid environments. But who are the kids that need them the most? It's the kids in the urbans and the rurals. And so I kept seeing over 3 years, school after school where there were just no teachers. And I was like, this is not right. I didn't know this existed in America. First of
Right.
all, I was lucky enough to get an education in New Jersey. And I just assumed everybody had access to teachers.
Okay.
And to go across the country and see this wasn't true, I was like, there has to be something that we can do about it. And I used to live on the road basically. So I was always trained through Skype back in the day.
Okay.
And I was like, well, this works for me. I can see the teacher. I can learn. I'm enjoying this. And I was like, well, if we can do this for me and the students that are now coming into our schools, it's a millennial, now it's the I generation, they're never going to know a day without Google.
Right.
Right. And so I'm like, if there's anyone who would really enjoy learning in a virtual environment, it would be this group of students. So I decided to actually leave my job and start a company that can actually connect teachers with the students that need them from home and allow teachers to take advantage of the gig economy. And so that was the genesis of proximity learning. Is I found a group of investors in Austin and moved to Austin and actually started the company. And what I found was teachers are more than willing to work from home.
Okay.
They don't want to go to, let's say, the outskirts of Milwaukee. But you know what? They're willing to work in Milwaukee, but live in Texas or in Florida or in New Hampshire. And we stream them in live every day. And so we're able to really take advantage of technology and connect the students that need the teachers the most with the
Right.
teachers that need it. And so that was how I started the company, 9 years ago. And we had a couple of people and me, and now, we have over 800 teachers serving 50,000 students a day. So it's been a really, really good ride.
Well, hat off to you. From a business standpoint, it's great that you identified a hole and developed a solution. But obviously, from a social standpoint, this is a very moving hole that you're filling. So I definitely applaud what you're doing there. I'm curious. It sounds like you are filling holes within educational institutions. Have you guys considered developing a whole curriculum, to make it an entire virtual school?
So it's interesting. When I started the company, I didn't want to have anything to do with curriculum.
Okay.
Like there's enough curriculum companies out there. Each district is different. People are very touchy about curriculum. But what we found is as we went into school districts, our premise was we'll give you a great teacher. Just give us your teacher materials, your textbook, your lessons. What we found was school districts in America, not all of them actually have it. So we would go into, let's say, the deep South, like in Mississippi or New Mexico or in Arizona, and we would bring a math teacher or a science teacher or a Spanish teacher, and we'd say, great, can you give us your teacher edition, right? Normal.
Right. Yep.
Normal materials any new teacher would get. Your lesson plans, right?
Yep.
We'd say, give us that, and we'll give it to our teacher, and they'll teach. We don't have it. Do you have a textbook? Right? Just give us a textbook. We have a really good teacher. We'll work with them to figure out. We don't have textbooks. This is America. This is the real America that isn't on the news. Right? This is what we were seeing all over the South. And so how are we going to bring a teacher to teach if they got no curriculum? And so we actually had to pay our teachers to kind of build the plane as they flew it.
Yep.
To create curriculum so that they actually had materials to help these kids. I remember one story. We went to Roswell, New Mexico, and they had no math teachers in their high school for the last 3 years.
That's insane.
No math teachers. And this is the third largest district in the state, maybe.
Right.
We walk in there, no math teachers, and we said, great, where are your textbooks? They had 25 textbooks that were supposed to be used for 180 students.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and this was all new to me. I just assumed that districts had textbooks, curriculum, because that's when you think of a school district, that's the basic.
Yeah, exactly. That's the minimum requirement.
You'd assume, but they didn't have it, right? So over the past, 8 years, we've built a full 6th to 12th grade curriculum in-house. And we also became accredited. So we are advanced ed accredited, we are NCAA accredited. So we can offer diplomas if we wanted to.
Okay.
But instead of competing against school districts, what we've started to do is actually power a school district's virtual school.
Okay.
So, like in Louisiana, we're working with, let's say, Morehouse Parish to actually power the Morehouse Parish virtual school. So their students can actually choose to go online or in school, and they can go through our coursework so that a school district can overnight have their own virtual school for their students.
And from a virtual standpoint, are kids doing this at home or are they doing it in the classroom? Like how does that actually work from a physical standpoint or a technology?
So when they implement the virtual school, typically the students will do it at home, and what we'll set up is live class sessions
Okay.
so that they could join live classes. Let's say it's an Algebra 1, and there's 15 kids that are in Algebra 1 from home. Well, from 10:05 to 10:55 is that live class 3 days a week.
Right.
So from home, they log on and they participate in the class.
Okay.
And so that's really what we've set up in that type of instance.
Okay. Well, I'm curious from a business and an entrepreneurial standpoint, what are some of the roadblocks or challenges that you faced starting a business from scratch and, getting it to where it's thriving today?
I mean, there's a lot. I think my mind's kind of blocked them out. But I would say, one of the biggest challenges in the beginning was just convincing people virtual teachers can work. In education, people are used to doing something the same way.
Okay.
And there's no incentive to change, right? It's public
Right.
money. Every year they get the same funding every year, whether they do, well or not. And so it really takes an administrator who truly wants to change the lives of kids to say, we need to do it differently. And so it was very hard in the beginning to say, hey, a virtual teacher, how we're talking right now, could be as effective as an in-class teacher.
Sure.
And it took those early adopters to really get in there and to really, I guess you could say, get our first couple of years out to where we can have examples, we could have references. That is the biggest gift that we were given was from those early districts.
Okay.
Was the ability to test it out. Because also our first year or two, we did it all wrong. we definitely didn't know what we were doing. It was a good concept. But teaching in a virtual environment is very challenging, especially when it comes to your core, like your math, your science, your English, your history. And we definitely did not know what we were doing the first couple of years. And it took a couple of years to do it right. That's why when you see, all these reports coming out about the failure of our education system last semester,
Sure.
it's because you can't just switch to online and do it right. It took us probably 4 years, a minimum, to understand how to do it, then start training our teachers, building the curriculum around it, so now we can really affect kids properly. I'd also say teacher unions were not helpful.
Okay.
They definitely, stopped our growth in states like California, in New York, because they were waiting for a teacher to be hired to join the union instead of, us coming in with a virtual teacher. And so there were many times when kids went, I guess you could say years with no teachers because the union was waiting for the district to hire an in-person teacher. And they didn't allow us to come in. So that's where we had to focus in on the South our first couple of years.
Okay.
Was to work with districts that, were held to the same restrictions that unions provided. Now we're seeing a lot of growth in those states, but it's probably due to the fact that the teacher shortage is just unreal right now. I mean, there's over 300,000 teacher vacancies to date. And with COVID, they're saying that's going to triple. So we could see almost 1 million teacher vacancies next year.
Oh my God.
And, what are you going to do? It's all about the students, right? Well, it's not all about the students if you don't have a teacher in front of them. And so those were challenges. Payroll challenge, just having access to money, because districts don't pay on time. They pay 30, 60, 90 days out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have payroll, right? I have rent. I have other costs that are due, right now. And how do you make payroll if you're not getting revenue for 90 days? Right? That's something I didn't really think about in the beginning. And so, I mean, if it wasn't for me being able to get the credits from banks,
Yep.
I truthfully don't think we'd be here right now. Because we look on paper like we're doing really well, but in the bank, we're negative.
Right.
Right.
Receivables
So,
are so far out.
yeah, and there's not much you can do. And so, having access to capital to sustain your growth was a huge help. Finding the right people too was a challenge. In the beginning, I thought I had the right team, and they ended up not being the right team, and
Okay.
they ended up making it harder. And so now I'm fortunate enough to have a phenomenal team behind me, but it took years of finding, hiring, seeing how they work, having to let go. Even now, we had to let people go this past year that didn't live up to our core values and to our mission, and that's tough as you grow, because each person provides such value to the team, and you need everyone. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right, in
Sure.
your team. And so it's a challenge to find people that align to your cores and your mission. And so that was a challenge. But I would say other challenges we faced were sales and marketing. Once you get past the early adopter stage, where those people are more amiable to try new technologies, once they're done, all right, now how do you reach everyone else?
Right.
Right. So knowing where to invest in marketing, hiring and convincing salespeople to come work for you, yeah, is a tough one. And I somehow sold some amazing people to come work for me for like almost half of what they were earning,
Okay.
beforehand. And now they've been with me for 5 years, so they love it.
Sure.
I would also say the big companies in the industry, that truthfully, they're not student first, they're revenue first.
Yeah.
They copy your marketing. So even though they don't do what we do, they copied our marketing. They we're so much smaller, but they went to our website and started copying our marketing and saying, we have live teachers, we do virtual staffing, and they don't. They did office hours.
Okay.
We're the only company that really does live instruction every day. And they start copying us. And so we'd go to a district and they said, well, this company does it already. And we'd say, what? Like, they don't do that. They offer office hours. We offer
Right.
full instruction. And so, there's a lot of, interesting roadblocks as you grow. Right. And every kind of percentage point, like once you go from 1 million to 5 million to 10 million, they have those valley of deaths that are before it. And there are so many new challenges that you face before reaching those milestones.
Okay.
This past year, it was tech support. We didn't realize we grew by 50% in 1 month in August.
That's insane.
And we were expecting that same growth over the whole year.
Right.
Well, with that growth, you need to have the teachers ready. You need to have implementation. You need to have a support team. We didn't have that prepared for that type of growth. And so if we didn't have a strong team, we should have we should have lost this year. It should have been a bad year for us, but we were able to recover, and we only lost a few clients. We didn't lose, our major clients, and they stayed with us. And by the end of the year, they thanked us because we did a great job. But I mean, that was something we're not prepared for, and we are now prepared for it for next year. But it's a good problem, but it's a problem that can also end your business.
Sure.
We could have gone out of business this year because we would have failed at delivering what we asked. And in education, if you have a bad reputation, people don't work with you.
Right.
And so, there's so many new roadblocks, and I'm excited for this year, but I'm sure there's going to be another roadblock that's going to come up that we just did not expect. And again, it's all about having the right team next to you, because you can't do it on your own.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit further. So obviously hiring is something that, I think everybody's kind of got their own way about it. You struggled maybe a little bit at the beginning, but over time you've kind of gotten to the point where presumably you've gotten better at identifying who those potential teammates are and how well they align to your business. Any any lessons learned that you can share about your hiring practices that might help companies looking?
Sure. So just about a year and a half ago, we implemented something called the Culture Index,
Okay.
where it's a survey that you take, and then it aligns you up to a personality trait.
Okay.
Um, and it's based on, you know, your ego, how much you need people in your life, how long you can work, your mental capability. It kind of goes through a whole list. And so before we hire, our management team comes together and we fill out a survey to let us know the type of person we want to hire.
Okay.
And then we put that profile up. So any person who applies to the position, they need to take that survey, and then we see how they match up before we interview them, so that they can align into the type of person we're looking for.
Sure.
The second thing is we have our mission and core values at the beginning of everything, and so we want to make sure they understand it. We also allow, it's not just the hiring manager that interviews that person anymore. It's multiple divisions. We usually have a committee when it comes to divisions, so that we can get input from multiple divisions, because they're going to be working. Everyone in our company works across divisions, right? So
Okay.
we want people to be comfortable with who we're hiring. And it's usually a 3-step interview. So it's the division interviews them, then it's across divisions, then it's the final senior team, and then they would get hired, so that we can make sure there's buy-in from all stakeholders before we hire a corporate position.
Okay, that's insightful. I'm curious, on the video side of things, you've clearly been using it for quite a long time as a foundation of your business. But for a lot of businesses, this has suddenly been thrust at them, right? I mean, it's like we were shoulder to shoulder, a few months ago, and suddenly, overnight, we're miles apart and we're all connected via video. I'm curious what you see looking in the immediate right now. And then looking forward, like, how do you think video is going to evolve within the landscape?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how everybody is moving either to Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or you name it. I think we're going to see, kind of like on the phone, there's a lot of new ways to interact with people through different apps.
Sure.
I'm seeing that coming out more.
Okay.
I would be surprised if in the next couple of years that virtual technology doesn't take a leap. It's been slowly coming in, right?
Right.
Putting on, the glasses, and it's been slow adoption, right? But what you're going to see is conferences are going to change now. All industries would go to conferences. That's a way to meet people. That's a way to see vendors. Well, what we're hearing from conferences is that they're having a 30 to 40% drop in attendees, right? So how are you still going to make that an effective, way to reach and communicate? And
Sure.
a Second Life type environment is probably the closest way you're going to get to that.
Right.
People are not going to leave their houses anymore, right? Well, how do you make this more engaging? You need more features, right? The ability to group people easier, the ability to pop up surveys, and ability to entertain, like the green screen, right? That's a new technology that's been there. But what Zoom do? They now allow you to add a whole bunch of different backgrounds to make it cool,
Right.
and you actually don't even need the green screen anymore. That just came out, a month ago. Well, where are they going to keep going to create, more active environment for teaching,
Okay.
or just for interacting? There's going to be a lot of investment. So Zoom was the leader, but now everyone sees the market. So you're going to see a lot of, I'm sure, startups coming in.
Yeah.
Bringing new ideas into it, and a Microsoft or a Zoom will buy them and implement it. But you're gonna see a lot more investment in virtual instruction and virtual communication than there ever was before. It was slowly getting there, but now it's just overnight. Everyone's going to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people on my team that aren't even going to travel anymore, that don't want to leave their house anymore. Right? They said they're afraid to leave their house. They're 60-some years old, and they said, "You know what? I'm going to be good. Do you mind if I work from home?" And I said, "Sure." They said, "This is where I want to be. I don't want to come in." They're probably not going to travel anymore. Well, how do you reach these people? How do companies reach them in order to, get them to buy something?
Sure.
If they're not going to come visit them in the malls anymore, they're not going to travel on vacation. How do you still provide an experience for these people? And I see there being a whole new industry that's going to open up for this segment, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I think video is like it's the most amazing medium outside of literally being next to you, right? To being able to have a real face-to-face conversation. But to your point, adoption was so low, right? There was this hesitancy, and I think a lot of it had to do with maybe not conscious vanity, but oh, I don't like how I look, I don't like how I sound, and I'm afraid. And overnight, not by choice, but that was completely eradicated because this was literally, whether it was business or personal, literally the only way that you could have an engaging, conversation with people. So I'm excited to see the type of advances that you're talking about.
Yep. And like we're already, another thing that's going to be interesting to see is going to be Zoom fatigue.
Correct.
I mean, I've gone through it myself where you're on for a long period of time and all of a sudden your eyes start to get tired and, you just feel more tired, like you just ran a marathon. And that's going to happen.
For sure.
Here's my son. And that's going to happen too. There's no separation of family and work. Right?
Exactly. Well, so my next question is around education, but from the standpoint of the kids that are going through it right now. There's a lot of kids that have recently graduated or kids that are still in school, and this is a very different time. I'm curious about forward thinking. If you could say, hey, as you're looking for a future career, do you have any advice for kids that are in the education system right
now? Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're in high school, you might not need to go to college right now. You just need to know how to program or need to know how to, manage an online environment well.
Sure.
Plus, all companies are going to start creating new positions around this, right?
Yep.
Helping people to work from home and work remote. I would say for people in school, you want to think about the job of the future, right? What is it? It has to do with video delivery, has to do with computer programming, has to do with product management, video, online products. Marketing is going to be huge because still huge, but it's going to be different and focus on learning, where we're headed, right? Well, there's marketing here, right? Maybe that should be something, a vendor buys for me to say, hey, Budweiser, behind me, but we're going to need new ways to reach people and figuring that out and working with your college or your high school in order to practice it.
Sure.
I'm seeing more companies looking at experience over school right now. You're going to see more of that with Apple and Facebook and Google all took away their college requirements. Okay. And now they're taking away SAT requirements in college. I mean, that means people now have kind of like sports. I remember 10 years ago when they started allowing people go into professional from high school.
Yep.
Right. And it changed everything because we realized they actually are ready for the professional if they're that good.
Sure.
I think we're going to start seeing the same thing here where people who are talented right in high school can go right directly into college.
Okay.
And right into, corporate.
Well, into professional. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And you're not going to need colleges. Right. And we're going to start seeing a lot of colleges probably, even, going bankrupt because they can't sustain it. Well, what does this look like? Right. But I'm excited to see where it heads because I got young kids and I'm kind of happy they're really young. So the industry will hopefully change. So we know what is it going to look like? Is it going to be college? Is it going to be right out of high school? Is it going to be trade school? I think trade schools are a whole better investment than spending $150,000, $200,000 on a college degree where you come out with a skill you can't use. Right. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Okay. Well, next question is just if you could go back in time to I think it's about 15 years ago, knowing now what you know, would you give yourself a specific piece of advice that might help you grease the wheels as you grew that business?
Wow. A lot of advice. Yeah. I would say one, you have to trust yourself and your
Yeah.
decisions. When you're starting a business, you're second guessing every decision you make. And so I would say definitely trust, where you want to head. I would say delegate sooner.
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, you want to keep everything to yourself because you're going to do it the best.
Yeah.
But then you don't do anything the best because you're doing everything. And so being able to really delegate and trusting people sooner so that you could delegate to them so that you free yourself up to do more important tasks is really important. It took me a long time to hire a director of ops. It took me a long time to offload stuff. It's because you're so afraid
Yeah.
because it's your time, your money, your business. It's kind of like your child.
Yeah.
It's like sending your child to school.
Right.
You're afraid. You're like, I don't want to let them go. But once they go, you realize, they blossom, they meet people, they do well. It's the same thing with your
Exactly.
company. You gotta do it. It's hard.
Well, I've heard that from others as well. That's been one of the primary themes I've heard is it's difficult because it is your baby, but once you do it and you realize how much more it frees you, it allows you to then spend time, helping the business in other areas that, needed attention.
Yep. And I would definitely say it's been a godsend finding the right people to delegate to because they've allowed me to now work on projects I need to work on for the whole company as
Sure.
opposed to, small initiatives.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, so I really appreciate you jumping on today. And I definitely look forward to having you back on again in the future to see how education is heading into the 2021 year. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Yeah, we are very curious to see what happens because we're hearing 1 in 5 teachers are going to quit. We're hearing 1 in 4 families aren't going to send their kid to school. So
Okay.
districts are going to have to create a virtual learning option,
Right.
which only I think 10% of the districts in America currently have.
Okay.
So where is this all heading?
There's an
If anyone
incredible
has a child
disconnect.
right now, yeah, if
Yeah.
anyone has a kid right now who's in public school, it's a massive question mark,
Right.
right? What's the quality of instruction? And if they have parents like us, we would help them. There's tutoring, there's us. But what about the kids who don't have parents that are their advocates? Equity is going to become a huge issue. And how do we solve that equity issue? I don't know. But that's going to be a massive discussion piece in the next probably 30 days, actually, because the
Yeah.
first schools in America start the first week of August.
Right.
So we are about 30 days out from school beginning for the 2021 school year.
Which is surreal.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Okay. Well, thank you again. My best to you, your team, and your family. And like I said, I look forward to having you back on.
All right. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.